Good morning. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. Hope everybody's off to a great start to their day. Happy to have you guys here until 1 o'clock, Lucas and myself. Still no sign of Robert. We think the onion may have killed him. No signs of life thus far. I don't know if we need to put together a floral arrangement and send our condolences to his lovely girlfriend and family, but we'll see if he makes an appearance from the shadows at some point.
Yeah, I might need to text Cheyenne and make sure everything's okay. I have not seen him since he basically limped out of the studio at the end of the show on Tuesday.
Well, I mean, as we said, we made sure for the purposes of HR to acknowledge that this was an undertaking entirely of his own design, so we have no culpability whatsoever for those who would try and incriminate us in Onion Gate. But meanwhile, we've got a lot of ground to cover today. 615-737-1045. Join us at any point if you would like. A lot of coaching news right out the gate and a couple of different things that we need to talk about just for the sake of relevancy around here. The Jets have hired former Broncos head coach Nathaniel Hackett as their offensive coordinator. For those of you counting at home, that makes 2 of the 13 available OC jobs that have been filled. So we'll keep you updated on anything that happens with the Titans gig at this point. No new information as of this morning. One of the former Titans coaches is now employed by the Jets, Keith Carter. The offensive line coach here for a time under Mike Vrabel is now the O-line coach in New York and their run game coordinator. So additional responsibilities in his new role working for Robert Saleh. I think Karen just wrote in the YouTube chat, Robert is gone because Dawn whacked him for eating an onion in her chair. You know, the amount of fear that Dawn Davenport brings out amongst all of you, I don't get it. Like, why do you insist on living in fear of Dawn? She's just a lot of bluster. It's a lot of hot air, I feel like. I feel like there's a level of intimidation there that you guys allow her to have, power that you allow her to have over you that I simply refuse. Simply refuse. But yes, it's entirely possible if we're going to incriminate anybody that Dawn is most likely involved. Meanwhile, a lot of different elements to the coaching search at this point, and you know, the timeline for the Titans, typically staff changes. In the past, they've announced them around the Senior Bowl, so that's kind of what we're looking at right now. We'll see what ends up happening at this stage of the game. But as far as the Titans go and the state that they're presently in, you're going to hear from Ran Carthon a little later on about the idea of, you know, a rebuild. Is this a team that's in need of one, or is the situation at hand for Tennessee enough that you can kind of make it work and just add a little new blood into the mix? But there will be time for that later. Meanwhile, we have to celebrate, speaking of 3HL and Dawn Davenport, we got to celebrate our teammate, Ron Slay, who had a tremendous debut, I heard on the SEC, or rather on ESPN2 last night, for the upset Texas A&M over Auburn. Now, I'm gonna cop to something, okay? Indiana played Minnesota at the same time, so I did not watch Slay on ESPN2. I saw stuff on the internet. I was happy to repost all the stuff on the internet because I'm proud of my guy. I'm happy for him, and based on all the results, I heard that he absolutely killed it. Lucas, can you confirm?
Oh, it was awesome. It was awesome. It was a great environment, too, which I think helped Slay in the middle of the jungle down there in Neville Arena and Auburn, rocking crowd. Big upset, like you said. A&M kind of went in there and took a couple punches early and then sort of grabbed control of that game and didn't let go of it for the entire second half. And Slay was just rocking with the crowd. He had the headband on the 2-shot next to Tom Hart. I mean, Slay was just doing Slay things like we knew he would.
Well, good. So what were the highlights? I saw him and Tom Hart wearing headbands together. I saw that, you know, they looked like, and by the way, if you had to put, because that's not Slay's first time doing a game. He's obviously been doing TSU games for some time.
Yeah, he's done TSU games. He and I have done high school basketball on the Zone before. That was his first.
Humble brag.
That was his first ESPN game broadcast.
So outside of the wearing of headbands and Slay clearly feeding off the energy, what were the highlights from the broadcast?
Well, he just crushed it. I mean, it's just Ron Slay. He brought the energy. He brought it in. He picked his spots. The analysis was good. And it was a game that was kind of tailor-made for Slay because of the battle of bigs between Texas A&M and Auburn. It's a big part of both of their identities. So Slay, is able to talk about that, what's going down in the Boom Boom Room, few Boom Boom Room references in there. I thought Tom Hart did a good job of teeing him up as well. So he just crushed him. He just did exactly what we knew he was going to do. Here's a little bit of it if nobody caught it last night.
The SEC Network, if you haven't caught him, the former SEC Player of the Year is Alan Flanagan gets one, but first time calling a game, and I don't know if I'm prepared.
Just buckle up. You'll be fine.
Deep three. Good.
Wow.
Ray Taylor, the fourth, hit the bottom of the net.
Bang, bang, bang. Big time shot for Taylor to silence this crowd. That's going to be big going forward. And them got to take this crowd out of the game.
It makes me happy. It
Yeah.
puts a smile on
It just
my face.
it just feels right. It looks right. It sounds right for Ron Slay to be doing big-time college basketball.
Television's Lucas Panzica, television's Ron Slay, television's Don Davenport. How many more stars can be created from the 104.5 The Zone universe?
I'm afraid my days of calling hoops with Slay might be over. I mean, he's too big a star now. He's just raced right by me, as he should. But I'm gonna miss calling a game with Slay and hearing him yell bang 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 when like a 5'10" sophomore drills a three from the top of the key.
Wait, is that his thing? Bang, bang, bang.
Oh, yeah,
So
every
it's
time.
not just Mike Breen. He's tripling Mike Breen. It's
Yeah,
not,
he
it's
does
not just the bang.
He does the three.
Okay. Well, that's fun. Speaking of crushing it, the University of Tennessee last night. What do you do if you're Georgia? Like it's such a brutal way to lose 70-41 before their top 10 matchup this coming Saturday, I do believe.
Does that come up at Thanksgiving? You think with the White family?
So Mike White, who is now the coach of Georgia, formerly the coach of Florida, and Danny White, the athletic director for the University of Tennessee, who just received a pay raise and an extension yesterday. I'm sure there are great. I mean, it's not like UCF and Florida were any kind of a feud when Danny White was the athletic director there. But I have to think that there's some kind of competitiveness in the White family that Danny may just feel the need to stick it to Mike every once in a while.
I hope so, because that game was not even remotely competitive.
Yeah, no, it wasn't close. Georgia was incredibly sloppy. They had a bunch of bad possessions, turnovers all over the place, and Zakai Ziegler, as good a defensive performance as I think we've seen from him this season. It's what Tennessee is supposed to look like at their peak. Just absolute smothering defense. They continue to find rhythm offensively with Ziegler and Vescovy, Josiah Jordan James. Vescovy and Triple J, they had 7 rebounds apiece in this game. Julian Phillips had 6 against Georgia as well. So, I mean, they're now blowouts. I was reading Mike Wilson, our good friend from the Knoxville News Sentinel this morning, and I knew that Tennessee had been on the winning side of a lot of wide margins of victory. But I did not realize that 11 of the 20 games that Tennessee has played so far, this is courtesy of Mike, they have won by at least 20 points, including these last 2 games against LSU over the weekend and Georgia last night. They have won 4 of their SEC games by at least 20 points. Georgia is the 10th opponent that the Vols have held to under 50 or 50 points or fewer on the season at this time. So that's just kind of what Tennessee is. But Lucas, you and I were talking about this morning, and I thought you articulated it well. The idea that still as they search for something that can give them the edge over Alabama, because that game coming up in the near future may well decide who wins the conference this year in the regular season. We have talked about the idea that Tennessee needs a more dominant go-to offensive presence, whether that be in the post, whether that be consistency in shooting, somebody that you can go to that you know, I mean, not to be cliche, but just can flat out get buckets when you need them. Brandon Miller is that person for Alabama. Tennessee is a little less little less consistent in that instance. And Lucas, I thought you articulated that well this morning on the phone when we were discussing about a particular sequence that took place last night for Tennessee.
There was one transition sequence where Tennessee basically has a 4-on-1, and Zakai Ziegler's driving the ball up the floor, and there's players coming down at his flanks. Uros Plavsic is racing down the floor, and literally one Georgia Bulldog, and it's like 3 passes, ends up with, I think, a little mid-range hook from Plavsic that doesn't go in. So just a 4-on-1 instance where Tennessee doesn't get a bucket, where they're almost being too unselfish, and that's kind of been a theme of this season. You look at a 70-41 blowout. What do you think the highest scorer on Tennessee's roster put up yesterday?
Oh, without looking at the box score off the top of my head, I would say somebody had to have 20 points.
Zakai Ziegler had 11 points. He was Tennessee's lead scorer on the night.
What?
Ziegler had 11. Tobe Awaka had 10 points, the freshman who has developed pretty nicely for Tennessee this season. Olivier Cumwa chipped in 8. Santiago Vescovi chipped in 8. 6 from Josiah Jordan-James. 6 from Jonas Adu. 5 from Julian Phillips.
Now this is not a bad thing that they can get that kind of balance, but still, I would like to see one of their players at some point when you need them to take over a game. Now, they can win this way because they have that defense.
Absolutely.
But they cannot. I think that's the thing that has me on less solid ground about Tennessee, particularly when Alabama is in the field up against them in their conference this year. That is the kind of thing that just, it gives me a little bit of trepidation.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Tennessee has a balance that most coaches in college basketball would be envious of. They have a level of defensive efficiency most would be envious of. Their assist numbers are fantastic, but there's just not that alpha. Just the guys, give me the ball. We need a bucket, just give it to me. There's not that guy, and I worry about that when Tennessee is going, head-to-head with Alabama in Thompson-Boling Arena, a game that could go a long way in determining the regular season champion in the league, and it's a back-and-forth game. It's a high-scoring matchup. Every possession is critical, and you know who Alabama wants with the ball in their hands. It's Brandon Miller. No question. He's the best player in the country right now, in my opinion. But with Tennessee, you don't really know the answer to that. If Santiago Vescovi can get an open look, yeah, you want him taking a 3. Other than that, I don't know who you just say, just give him the ball, let him go do his thing. There's not that guy right now.
Not at this stage.
For Tennessee to get to where they want to get as far as the third weekend in the NCAA tournament, the Final Four, they have to figure that out. There has to be that guy. It's been an interesting year for them. I feel like this team, you could argue, like the analytics and the numbers say it is the best team Rick Barnes has ever had. Yet, it feels like the hype is one of the lowest that he's ever had since he really turned it up at Tennessee with that first Grant Williams, Admiral Schofield team.
615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. Get to your phone calls on this in just a moment. We're also going to take a look at what one NFL general manager had to say that was one of the most asinine comments I've ever seen. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. Welcome back to the show. Buck Rising here with you until 1 o'clock, 615-737-1045. That's how you join the conversation. Start off with one of our favorites as we go to the phone lines. How about the good Dr. Detroit? Been hanging out with us for a minute. What's up, Doc?
Oh, Captain, how are you doing, my good man? It's an honor as always.
Better now. What you got for us?
It's okay. Hey, first, real quick, I want to give a shout-out to a gentleman named Steve. He just escorted me from Ford to Murfreesboro. I had to get my beautiful Ford Fusion in to get service for the warranty expired. Yeah, I mean, what anything in general that y'all talking about, but I was just going to briefly talk a little football, maybe a little hockey as well. First and foremost, I am a Louisville Cardinal. I didn't know if you knew that about Dr. Detroit, but being a Louisville Cardinal. Is the rumor true? Is the Braun brothers really coming back to the promised land at Louisville?
Well, Lucas, do you have any information on that at this point?
On Jeff Brom? Jeff Brom is the head coach at Louisville. I can tell you that. I don't know anything about his brother coming back to Louisville.
Well, yeah, I want to know that too. Is he along with the package or staying in Purdue? But anyway, that's the first and foremost. Second, and I know you've been with Dr. Detroit. You felt my pain. You felt my anger. You know, I lived in Brentwood most of my life, born in Nashville. But you can't just throw away your childhood teams. But I'm blessed to have NFL football here. I'm blessed to have NHL hockey. There's nothing in the world like it. One most important thing I want to get out, when they've already approved the new stadium, correct, guys, to build the Titans stadium?
It made it through the Metro Council vote last I saw.
Okay. Now, is there, and going back on this, is there still talk of possibly Major League Baseball in Nashville?
Yes, Doc. Thank you for the call. We appreciate it. 615-737-1045.
And yes, Brian Brom is the offensive coordinator at Louisville under his brother Jeff.
Okay, so good news for the Louisville Cardinal contingent at this point. So here's the deal about the Major League Baseball stuff, and then we'll pivot back into some more topical discussion. I did see The Athletic reporting on a press conference that Rob Manfred, the commissioner of baseball, recently held. Expansion is the goal, and Nashville is one of the top 2 markets that they are most closely exploring. Again, it comes back to the financing of the baseball franchise and the idea that the Music City Stars, as they're currently called, and MLB to Nashville and the group that has been put together that's headed up by John Lohr, who's, I think, their most front-facing member. They don't have the capital right now. They don't have a John Ingram, the way that Nashville SC did, to basically come in, have the billions with a B to move the project forward basically at will and kind of have legitimate backing. You can put Eddie George and Maren Morris in Music City Star jerseys all you want, but that's not actual money that is financially backing and moving the team forward or the progress with the franchise forward the way that needs to be done. So I don't have any information on that notably, other than baseball is very, very interested in Nashville as a market. How they go about getting that done remains to be seen. Robert, he's alive. I haven't heard from you in 2 days. You just walked in here like nothing's wrong, smelling probably still of onion and cigarette, and having offered no proof of life since last we saw you in here on Tuesday.
He lives.
People are concerned.
What do you want?
I want to make sure you're okay.
You don't really care if I'm okay. You just want to know that I'm not going to sue you or anything, which you will be hearing from my lawyer.
I'm not culpable. I made sure several different times throughout the course of the 3 hours.
We didn't sign anything. You are culpable, as you said. Did I say that word right?
Yes, you did.
Mr.
Good job out of you.
Word. What's going on?
Mr. Big Word. People have been worried about you.
That I fell to the onion sickness or something?
Yeah, I'm not worried about you.
You just fell off the map.
Yeah.
After you walked out of here at 1 p.m. on Tuesday.
In fact, I was actively jockeying to do a remote from your funeral. Had you passed, not without a talent fee. Cheyenne is lovely. But there still would have been a talent fee associated with me showing up and doing a live remote at your funeral. Onions or not, I would have brought a bouquet of onions as opposed to flowers to the proceedings. But it's good to see you.
Let's be honest. If I was to pass away and you or Lucas was to do my eulogy, I know one of you would try to snatch up Cheyenne in my honor. And I would be okay with it. I'm here to say live on the air,
No.
if I passed away, one of you should be culpable for Cheyenne.
That's not.
Did I use that word correctly?
I don't think so.
No, I don't even think you used it a little bit correctly.
I'm not sure what that word means.
No, God. No, that sounds like a whole a Will Smith type of entanglement for Lucas if that was.
Well, it's not
to
like
be
I
the
can
case.
come back and smack one of you guys at an award show. Like if we had the Zonies,
Why?
I couldn't come back and be like, keep my wife's name out of your mouth. I couldn't come back and do that.
Why does Cheyenne, I feel, should have a say in this? I feel like this should not be delegated. Cheyenne needs to be the decision maker on that, by the way.
And we would bury you in an onion field.
Oh, I would love that. And then you guys could eat an onion from my remains. It's
No.
like the whole Lion King thing.
No, this is like
Hakuna Matata.
This is like Willie Nelson's desire to be, cremated
Yeah.
and then
Roll
rolled
me
up
up
and
and
smoked
smoke me.
after
Oh, that would be way cooler. Actually, you guys have to smoke me when I die. Speaking of Willie Nelson.
in a state where it's legal.
Yeah, and I actually, my body might break down into something that would be found illegal. So you probably would have to go to a legal state. Did you guys see Willie Nelson's 90th birthday concert?
I did see. Did you see the lineup for
Quite
that?
a lineup.
It is incredible. You know the worst part?
It's not coming here.
It's the same weekend as the draft.
Oh no!
It's the 29th.
Really?
Yes. So
It's not coming to Nashville?
I know it's in Hollywood. I think.
I don't think it's coming through
Oh,
Nashville.
so it's not really a tour.
No,
I think it's just a birthday party.
one birthday party for Willie Nelson.
I mean, this is just Beck, Billy Strings, Chris Stapleton, Casey Musgraves, Leon Bridges, Lucas Nelson, his son, who is an amazing musician, Margot Price, Nathaniel Rateliff,
Dumb name though.
Miranda Lambert, well, he spells it with a K, Neil
That's
Young,
even dumber.
Cheryl Crow, Snoop Dogg, Sturgill Simpson, the Avett Brothers, the Lumineers, Tyler Childers. I mean, this is an insane lineup that are hanging out with Willie and of course Willie performing too on his 90th birthday.
That's one of the first shows I ever saw was Willie Nelson live.
Bob Weir, my goodness.
was
Yeah.
that after your bottle service? You pretentious.
Yeah, what'd you think about that, Robert?
I saw.
Okay, wait.
I went. The first concert I ever went to was after I got bottle service. I got VIP selection seats to go see Willie Nelson, Toby Keith, Kenny Chesney, Hank Williams
No,
Jr.
it would have been like Michael
not
Bublé or something.
Yeah, you're right.
Michael
It wouldn't have been
Bublé,
that
but
cool.
you have to say it in a super. Bublé sounds like something you could say very, very pretentiously.
Bottle service before Bublé. Yeah, were you getting bottle service in your East Carolina bars,
Hell
Robert?
no, I was stealing bottles. I was broke as hell. Yeah, I had friends behind the bar, and you'd be like, "How many shots do you want?"
How
You would-
are we back here to this? Okay, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. Like,
What, that you're privileged?
yeah,
Yeah, he's super privileged.
like tough bleep.
I think you should start a charity where you donate bottle service to poor, underprivileged college students, where college students can have the buck rising college experience just like you did. And you should start with me and Lucas. Me and Lucas should get bottle service to experience what you did. Where the heck did he go to school at?
Indiana.
Oh, that's right. That podunk town full of bottle service bars.
You went to East Carolina.
That's Greenville, America.
I
buddy.
sent you to the bar.
Greenville, USA.
I sent you to an Instagram post of the bar.
I ignore all your Instagram posts.
That's not true at all, because oftentimes you're the subject of them.
I like those.
But did you not watch that video that I sent to the group text yesterday?
I did not. What was it? A highlight video of you spraying those sprinkler bottles during your birthday
Well,
with the
not
girls with the tassels over their thing?
Not me specifically, but just to give you an idea of what that bar environment is like, so that you could better understand why one would want a table as opposed to waiting in the line that goes around the corner. And listen, I'm not apologizing for any of this. Like, I don't feel bad about this at all. In fact, I would do it again. I would do it again. I still do.
Well,
I don't feel bad about any
You
of
don't
this.
have to feel bad. I feel bad for you because a college experience that does not include living in squalor and
No.
having to live off of pennies and buy $2 beers.
That sounds like hell.
That sounds
Yeah,
what
no.
you went through sounds like a terrible
It's
college
camaraderie.
experience.
And look, your neck veins, when you were saying that, scream you feel bad about it. Look at that neck popping. That boy lose all that weight, think he gonna come out here with turtleneck.
I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad.
We don't feel bad at all.
I don't feel bad. You're not going to make me feel bad at all for 1 second about this. And yeah, I will put my college experience, I don't know why we're back on this godforsaken subject, but I will put my college experience up against anybody else's I had a time.
Them neck veins veining, boy.
Yeah, well, 615-737-1045.
I got stuff to do. Can you send me that?
Shadows. Bottle service. I hate him so much. I just, that's when... It just comes back to one of these conversations. Did you put a hole in the wall? You hit the shadows so hard?
There's things that are falling and making sounds.
What happened? Did you knock something off the wall in there because I sent you to the shadows so vigorously? I'm concerned.
Do the Brandon Bean thing.
In a moment. Last point on this, okay? When people, so have you ever called somebody spoiled in your life?
Yeah, you.
Okay. Why is that a bad thing? I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, is that supposed to hurt my feelings? That doesn't make me feel bad at all. I don't understand why the allegation.
You're shameless.
Yeah, well, that's, maybe some people have more shame than I do, but what's the point of having shame? Like, it seems like an unnecessary burden. Like, if you're going to sit there and call me or anybody else in the world spoiled, like, I would be like, yeah, tough. My parents like me more.
You're going to need to dig out of this hole, bud.
What a turd.
Oh, goodness. All right. Speaking of dumb things that are said by people in front of microphones, Brandon Bean is the general manager for the Buffalo Bills as we seamlessly transition back into football.
No, they have a good team. I mean,
why am I hearing
they
from
right
him
now
right
are
now?
on the advantage
What are you
of
doing?
a rookie quarterback contract. And
Be honest with you, I hit it on accident, but
they
it
had
worked.
some lean years, and without getting too much into their build, and I don't want to suck bad enough to have to get Jamar Chase. Like, he's a heck of a talent. I'd love to have him, but you gotta go through some lean years to do that. And they were able to get Burrow 1, and I don't remember where Chase was drafted, but it was pretty high. Like, and those guys are on their rookie deals. We're paying Stephon Diggs a pretty hefty number. We're paying Josh Allen a pretty hefty number. So there is the constraints of the cap, but they have a really good team, and they got some good young players.
Okay, so we talked over half of that clip. That's Brandon Bean, the general manager. Did you actually hit that on accident, or you were trying to railroad me?
No, I did, but it worked out.
Okay.
Sometimes things just work out.
That's Brandon Bean, the general manager, talking about, I don't want to suck bad enough to have Jamar Chase. So speaking of things that are out of touch, given that I am clearly out of touch with the vast majority of people who listen to this radio show, how could you be more out of touch if you were a general manager, an executive in that role, when the whole reason why you have Josh Allen, unicorn that he is because you were terrible for the longest time? How long did it take the Buffalo Bills to make the playoffs before Josh Allen became their quarterback? It was something like the better part of 2 decades.
Well, I don't think he's denying that. I feel like people are kind of taking this out of context.
All right, so help me understand what I'm missing there, because I heard that and I'm just like, buddy, what are you talking about? The whole reason you have the roster that you do is because you were a bad franchise for a very long time that allowed you to accumulate said talent.
Yeah, and I think what he's saying is he doesn't want to go through that again to continue to accumulate talent. Now there's different challenges for the Bills because they've paid their quarterback. They've paid their number 1 wide receiver. They've paid their edge rusher in Von Miller. So there are different challenges in roster building. Brandon Bean understands that teams go through lean years to acquire talent, and if you hit on that talent, have them on their rookie deals, it's a lot easier to build a winning franchise around those performing players in their rookie deals.
Yeah, he did that.
Yeah, he did that. He gets that. I think he's talking about the Bills in their current state and the challenges that he faces as the Bills GM as a contender to continue to build upon that and not wanting to have to suck to continue to get those players.
Well, I understand, without the question in the clip, it does make the context a little harder. Can I hear it in its entirety again, please, at your convenience?
No, they have a good team. I mean, they right now are on the advantage of a rookie quarterback contract. And, they had some lean years, and without getting too much into their build, and, I don't want to suck bad enough to have to get Jamar Chase. Like, he's a heck of a talent. I'd love to have him, but you gotta go through some lean years to do that. And they were able to get Burrow 1, and I don't remember where Chase was drafted, but it was pretty high. Like, and those guys are on their rookie deals. We're paying Stephon Diggs a pretty hefty number. We're paying Josh Allen a pretty hefty number. So there is the constraints of the cap, but they have a really good team, and they got some good young players.
So with Lucas providing a little more context, I do understand largely what the point he's trying to get across. I think that people just gravitated towards the smallest portion of that quote, which was, I don't want to suck bad enough to get Jamar Chase. And ultimately, as we get ready to talk about rebuilds and the idea of the Titans, and are they actually in one? Was this the season where they unintentionally sucked bad enough to get a top 15 pick the way that they now possess, selecting 11th overall in this year's NFL draft? I think that there's a little bit. One, I think a lot of people are going to look at that, at least Bengals fans, and be like, "Oh, you're just bitter. You're just bitter that we have Jamar Chase and you don't. You're bitter that the Bengals." And by the way, the Bengals have drafted consistently well, really regardless of who's been in place there. Going back, Marvin Lewis didn't win a damn playoff game for as long as he was there. Went to like 7. But
and the Jamar Chase pick was not regarded as a home run pick in my mind. Like, Bengals fans, I think, had some gripes with taking a guy who had not played a snap in the season prior when they had all these problems on the offensive line. Penei Sewell was still on the board. He ends up going to Detroit, and it ends up working out for them. In hindsight, that was an excellent pick that I think when you look back on it at the time, people were saying, okay, that's great, but
sure,
we got some other needs here. How are we going to throw it to this guy if we can't protect our quarterback? And their offensive line ended up sucking anyway. They still got to the Super Bowl.
And the evaluation process during the COVID year was different, right? Because that's how you end up with a Caleb Farley situation. That's how the Isaiah Wilson evaluation gets botched as badly as it did. I mean, there's obviously fault on the organization as well for not understanding truly who this person was that they were getting ready to take on. But there was a lot of problems with the evaluation process coming out of it. And so, yes, you are correct. Jamar Chase was no sure thing, even as we knew he was an utterly dominant force when last we saw him play college football prior to taking that season off. We'll talk about the Titans within this context a little later on. Meanwhile, the NFL Honors Awards are officially out, the finalists for the NFL Honors Awards, and we're going to go through the list and see who's most qualified to win what, coming up next. Okay, so NFL honors are officially out. The nominees. And there's a couple of different names here that I think are curious. So, for most valuable player, for MVP, your 5 options: Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Justin. Well, how do you want to do this, Lucas? Because you had a plan in place this morning when we talked about this.
Yeah, you just give me the winners.
On each category?
Yeah.
All right, that should be easy. MVP, Patrick Mahomes. I don't think there's any disputing that.
So Mahomes basically a shoo-in at this point for MVP.
As a regular season award, absolutely. There's no question. The man was utterly dominant. I believe he had north of 40 touchdown passes this season, over 5,200 passing yards. He is a fire-breathing dragon out there. There is no disputing that Patrick Mahomes should be the most valuable player.
Defensive Player of the Year, 3 finalists: Nick Bosa, the Niners; Chris Jones, the Chiefs; Micah Parsons, Cowboys.
It's between Nick Bosa and Micah Parsons. I think it has to be Bosa. I don't have their statistics up in front of me specifically, but watching Nick Bosa, I mean, Parsons has dominant performances, and they move him all over the place in that defense. He's one of the because he was an inside backer at Penn State, wasn't he?
Micah Parsons?
Yeah.
Yeah, he played around the defense.
Sure. I mean, he's an same thing as he is in the NFL, which is kind of crazy. That he can have this kind of positional fluidity and still find ways to dominate. But Nick Bosa is an unholy terror.
And he's put up just crazy numbers this year. 18.5 sacks for Nick Bosa.
Offensive Player of the Year.
Tyreek Hill, Jalen Hurts, Justin Jefferson, Pat Mahomes. So this is the game that we play where you can't give the MVP also Offensive Player of the Year, although if the MVP is winning MVP, he probably was the Offensive Player of the Year. So do you take Pat Mahomes out of this?
I would be inclined. I mean, I personally would give it to Mahomes. I don't know that the voters will do so for exactly the reason that you've just laid out. Jalen Hurts, I think, is the most likely person to win Offensive Player of the Year. Now, his passing statistics, Jalen Hurts, not obviously as dominant as what it is that Mahomes was doing throughout the course of this season, but what he contributes on the ground is what makes that offense so successful. So he had 22 touchdowns passing this year, 6 interceptions. Obviously, the Eagles had one of the best records in football at the end of the year. From a rushing standpoint, as I kind of look at through his statistics, he had this season his 3rd in the NFL, 13 touchdowns to go along with his 22 passing and 760 yards. Wait, did Daniel Jones have more rushing yards than Jalen Hurts this year?
Dual threat. I told you. You wanted to deny it. You should listen to me more. By the way, can you tell me the last player to win MVP and Offensive Player of the Year in the same season?
Ooh, good question.
Pat Mahomes, 2018.
Was it?
Yes. Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year. So Kenneth Walker III, Seahawks running back, had a great season out of Michigan State. Garrett Wilson,
love watching him play, by the way.
Yeah, and Garrett Wilson, despite all the Jets' malfunctions at the quarterback position, had a really nice rookie season. But does Brock Purdy just have to take this award? I know it's not necessarily a postseason award. In fact, the voting is the voting.
The voting's done.
It's done. So
it is. These are regular season awards. I think Brock Purdy has to be removed from that conversation.
Yeah, because it's a regular season award. But I feel like if he were to lead the Niners to the Super Bowl as a rookie, then I don't care what anyone says. He's the Rookie of the Year.
Understood. But that's just
I know. It's not how it works.
How these things are decided. Now, I wish it included the postseason. I think it would be a better. It's a more well-rounded version of what the discussion is, because obviously Brock Purdy is doing things that, very few, if any, rookie quarterbacks have done before.
So who gets it?
Garrett Wilson. I think that's as much about exposure as it is anything else. I think people are going to cite the same thing that you just did, which is that the quarterback situation was a mess in New York, and he still found ways to make plays. Now, Chris Olave should have been in this discussion, but obviously the Saints did not have the success that either the Seahawks or the Jets did by win-loss percentage this year. Kenneth Walker is a good one, but Garrett Wilson, I think, will win it.
Will the Jets double down with offensive and defensive Rookie of the Year? Sauce Gardner, a nominee, along with Aiden Hutchinson and Tariq Woolen on the defensive side.
Tariq Woolen's probably my favorite one of these guys to watch. And that's not, I mean, Sauce Gardner is incredible. Sauce Gardner's going to win it. Tariq Woolen and Aiden Hutchinson had great years, but Sauce Gardner, I mean, you could make the argument that Sauce Gardner is one of the best 3 corners in football, like now.
Yeah.
Now.
Comeback player of the year, Saquon, Christian McCaffrey, or Geno Smith? It's got to be Geno's to lose, right? Just because that storyline, how much it's dominated this season in the NFL. McCaffrey, I mean.
Saquon has a really good case, but Geno, I mean, literally, they wrote me off. I didn't write back.
Yeah.
He is the definition of the comeback player of the year. It's Geno Smith's to lose.
That's a storyline award, right? And Geno Smith has been stealing all. I mean, Saquon had a great season. His best game was also the first game here in Nashville.
Say that again.
Saquon's best game of the year was here. Week 1.
Yes. I would say that Saquon, by the way, is a free agent, and he's saying that he can't envision himself playing anywhere but New York. But I don't know if they're going to pay Daniel Jones too. Saquon, I think, is likely to end up on the market.
They've turned down one contract, and
Saquon has.
Yeah, and he's been really candid about it with the media. He said, "I'm not looking for a market reset. I get it. I've been hurt a couple of years, so that'll be interesting how that plays out." Last one, AP Coach of the Year: Brian Daboll, Sean McDermott, Doug Peterson, Kyle Shanahan, or Nick Sirianni.
Well, there's 2 more because there is also the Assistant Coach of the Year. In this one.
DeMeco Ryans probably wins that, right?
Oh, I don't know. Ben Johnson, the Lions OC.
They had a great turnaround.
My personal vote would go for Ben Johnson.
But head coach of the year.
I just don't see how it's not Sirianni. And, I know you harbor a lot of ill will towards Nick Sirianni.
I've got beef with Sirianni right now.
You want to explain it?
So, talking to Eagles media about what they were doing, the Philadelphia Eagles during their bye week. So during the wild card round, they were watching the games with Pizza Hut stuffed crust pizza. Okay, whatever. Of all the pizza joints in Philly, right? A great town with great Italian food.
Oh my God!
like you
Ralph's
talked
famous
about.
Italian. I had chicken parm the other night. I'm going to an Italian restaurant for dinner tonight. All I can think about is how much I wish it was Ralph's Famous Italian that Cosell and I went to when we were in Philadelphia for the game.
They have bottle service? But Pizza Hut
what
stuffed
is wrong
crust.
with you? Let me alone.
Pizza Hut stuffed crust during Wild Card weekend. That's what the Eagles were consuming during Wild Card. Okay, whatever. It irks me. And then Nick Sirianni has the gall, the audacity to talk to the Philadelphia media yesterday and say his food of choice for watching Cowboys-Niners was Little Caesars Pizza. Little Caesars Pizza, which if there was a Little Caesars Pizza in front of me right now,
you'd eat it.
I would devour it.
Yes.
I would eat every single bite. But of all the options available to you in Philadelphia, of all the Napolitan wood-fired brick oven pizza joints in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania,
this is the most upset I've ever seen.
Little Caesars. So no, Nick Sirianni should not be the coach of the year. Go to break.
It's the most upset I've ever seen you. And by the way, if Little Caesars would like to advertise on this fine local radio program, we would welcome your patronage.
Love Little Caesars.
I ate a lot of Little Caesars in high school specifically. You saying that to me, or you saying that to everybody? Okay, let's go to break.
It is 11:01. Good morning from the Superbook.com Sports Desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. Fourth-ranked Tennessee cruised on Wednesday a 70-41 win over Georgia, improving to 7-1 in SEC play. The Vols sit one spot behind Alabama in the standings, who remains undefeated in league play. Bama won 66-63 over Mississippi State last night. Belmont Bruins won a seventh straight game on Wednesday, a 73-64 final over Evansville. And coaching news in the NFL, the New York Jets have hired former Broncos offensive coordinator Broncos head coach Nathaniel Hackett as their offensive coordinator. Get out of here, bottle service, according to Ian Rappaport. And Adam Schefter reporting the Jets have also hired former Titans offensive line coach Keith Carter as the O-line coach and run game coordinator in New York.
Are you sure?
For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
You know, I have often said that everybody likes to see their friends fail every once in a while. Nothing makes me happier than to be able to railroad Lucas in the middle of one of those updates. Welcome back to the show. So how many different things did you botch there? What happened?
Just the one.
No, that's not true. You started leaking confidence after the first one, and then you tripped up over something about Nathaniel Hackett. I wasn't listening. I was just waiting for another screw-up so I could yell at you.
I misspoke on the Alabama final. And I misspoke on Nathaniel Hackett being the Broncos OC rather than the Broncos former head coach.
So you lied, not once but twice, and then you lied about lying, and so now you've compounded these things.
What are you trying to do here? Right? You're trying to shift attention on me.
Yeah,
you're trying to shift attention on me.
No,
because
you shifted attention on you with your foul ups there.
Because you're realizing how bad all this bottle service stuff is making you look, and how unrelatable and out of touch you seem.
Oh
so now
God.
You're trying to push it on me.
If I cared about that at all, I feel like I wouldn't be able to be me. Like, I feel like if any of that stuff impacted me whatsoever, I feel like we would do a vastly less interesting radio show. By the way, this whole thing, for people who are joining us for the first time, by the way, welcome. Lovely to have you here. The formula is to see how pissed off you can make me or how much I can be the bad guy so that you get to be the good guy. I feel like this formula inherently works in your favor, and yet you're trying to sabotage it.
Someone called me out on Twitter the other day for quit trying to be the everyman.
You?
Yeah. Made me think of like a superhero called Everyman, of just the most normal guy ever.
What would everyman? Everyman would wear what?
Just like a t-shirt and jeans.
Yeah, but like not even like a graphic tee, but like you know who the everyman is?
Just an E on the shirt.
Brock Purdy. Did you see him at his press conference in a plain white tee?
Everyman comes down to rescue the San Francisco 49ers, take them to the NFC Championship.
1 5-yard pass at a time. Everyman. Somebody tweeted you that or called you and said that?
Quit trying to be the everyman. It's getting old.
You're too relatable.
I'm
See?
too relatable.
You can't have anything. Nobody. It's not.
So who's the middle ground? Bert, the guy who ate a full onion like an apple on the air?
No, he's a creature. Like he's like our pet at this stage. Like he's subhuman. I think at times, which again makes me sound even less relatable.
Yeah, that could be problematic.
Robert is subhuman. Anyway. Let's talk about things that are in need of repair, not the show construct, but the Tennessee Titans. Rebuild or not? That is the question. Do you actually consider this to be a rebuild if you're a Titans fan? 615-737-1045. Because to hear the new general manager tell it, that's not the way that he's approaching this task. This was Ran Carthon last Friday at his introductory press conference.
As you peruse this roster and you see kind of where things stand right now, do you feel like this team is maybe just a few fixes away from being a contender again, or do you feel like that there's major changes that
No, this is a competitive team. This is a competitive team, and we can win football games. But at the end of the year, you evaluate your roster every year, and you're always looking for ways to improve that. And so that's what we're going to do here. Although I feel the team is competitive and we're good, the objective is not be good. The objective is to be great. And so we're going to continue to work to build a great roster, and that's going to be every year. So you can always take it to a new height. So that's going to be our approach.
So I think that's the kind of thing that a fan base wants to hear, right? If you say rebuild or even competitive rebuild, the way that it triggered me a couple of years ago with David Poyle and the Preds, the term rebuild indicates that you're basically gearing your fan base up. Hey, we're going to suck for a while. We're going to suck for a while. It's going to take us a little bit to get the pieces in place, and then we're going to Brandon Bean this thing and end up with, or I guess not Brandon Bean. Who's the GM of the Bengals right now?
It's escaping me.
I don't know off the top of my head. Either way, we're gonna suck. We're gonna get to Jamar Chase, and then we're gonna be cooking, baby. Everything is fine. It's like the dog drinking coffee in the kitchen. The everything is fine meme as the rest of the kitchen is in flames around him. Everything is fine. Now it's a little closer to that meme than it is not a rebuild, right? I saw somebody complaining earlier in the Zone TV chat as we talked about the NFL honors and the nominees for them, why Derrick Henry wasn't up for Comeback Player of the Year. Because the team that Derrick plays for lost 7 straight games. Derrick had an average for Derrick, not average for the NFL running back, but an average Derrick performance. 1,500 plus yards is not anything that's going to grab headlines other than, Derrick is doing it the year after he broke his foot.
It was the second best statistical season of his career, behind the worst offensive line of his career.
What? No, wait. It was the second best statistical season of his career?
Yes.
Rushing?
Yes.
That can't be right. All right. Pull up the numbers for me if you would. I mean, I know he finished second in the NFL in rushing.
In fact, someone on the YouTube chat was saying, why isn't Derrick Henry being talked about as a comeback player of the year?
Literally
candidate?
what I just said. Thank you for listening to the show.
Well, yeah. I rarely do.
Okay. I'm looking at Derrick Henry on Pro Football Focus, on Pro Football Reference right now. Holy bleep, by 2 yards. By 2? No. Okay, so
he had 2 more yards in 2019 playing in 3 more touchdowns. You're right.
It's the third best statistical rushing performance of Derrick Henry's career. That is correct. Not the second, but the third. So it's still up there out of 7 total seasons now that Derrick Henry has been in the NFL. But I think people expect Derrick Henry to get 1,500 yards without batting an eye. He's not a good story this year. He's not a good story. He wasn't on a good team. The team didn't make the playoffs. Not that it matters because this is a regular season award. But still, all the optics work not in favor of Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is not, is Derrick Henry a better comeback player of the year candidate than any of the players that we listed?
It was
Saquon, McCaffrey, or Geno? No.
Yeah, probably not.
No. Not even close. Saquon's been down bad for a couple of seasons. McCaffrey as well. Now McCaffrey gets the benefit of a scene change and goes to one of the most potent offenses and offensive minds in football. But let's not get bent out of shape about the Derrick Henry thing. Anyway, so Ran Carthon doesn't view this as a rebuild. Even if he did, that's the last thing that you say publicly. I was on all right. So before I have another relatability crisis, is it relatable to have a financial advisor? I feel like it is. I feel like most people, once they get to be like actual adults, I feel like to have a financial advisor is not an unrelatable thing.
Yeah, you get a pass on that one.
Okay, thank you. I was talking to the guy that I work with on that. And for the sake of, not outing him, I'm not going to use any names, but basically the conversation was, season tickets for the Titans next year. I don't know about that. Not quite sure. Not entirely certain how I'm feeling on it. You know how to kill that real quickly? Tell the fan base you're in a rebuild. Do you view this as a rebuild? Say that publicly at a press conference in front of the media. See how many season ticket renewals that drums up. Or more importantly, how many you lose as soon as you utter that into existence. Andrew says you should ask relatability questions off the air. I don't know. That's how are we going to get the content out of me otherwise? other than, all of my thoughts about sports, but I can only do that for so long. I feel like we need to have some moments where we try to publicly embarrass me at least.
So what are you saying? That you don't know if you believe Ran Carthon?
Oh, I'm just saying I don't know. Well, okay, so let's go through the list of things that could potentially make this a rebuild. Ryan Tannehill. If you move on from Ryan Tannehill, what do you consider that? I consider that as one singular move.
It completely depends on what you're replacing him with.
Fair, but you are rebuilding the quarterback position inherently if you move on from Ryan Tannehill, yes?
In a
Because Malik Willis is not your starter.
No. But in a hypothetical world where the Titans were to bring in Lamar Jackson, you would call that rebuilding?
It is a rebuild at the quarterback position from what they have had to what they may get.
Yeah, because it's a different player.
Yeah,
sure.
But you're citing the one example of a thing that everybody would be good with, right?
The goal for them is to figure out how can we be a contender in 2023. To me, that's not a rebuild. When I think rebuild, I think tear it down. I think tear it down, maybe,
buddy,
trade up for a quarterback in the draft. Like, that's what I think at every position.
Would cutting Lewan, Robert Woods, Bud Dupree, Zach Cunningham, a lot of highly paid veterans on this team, would you not consider that a bit of a teardown on top of quarterback questions? I don't know how you could look at the state of this roster, the players who are, potentially on the chopping block, and say, yeah, they're definitely in flux, but in flux is just a diplomatic way to say rebuild. So I don't know what Ran Carthon honestly think. And by the way, they were competitive. They were 7-3, and then they weren't. They didn't win another game after November 17th. They lost 7 straight. So they ceased being competitive to a degree, even as they were still in a lot of these games that they ended up blowing. So I take him at his word that he thinks this is a competitive football team, even as it is in a wretched state when last we've seen it. But I don't know how you can look at the number of names on the chopping block, see the coaches who have already been fired, understand that the general manager was already fired. Buddy, literally, the person in charge of building the team got fired. Rebuild. But you can't say that. Listen to Aaron Rodgers on the Pat McAfee show, I think about a week ago, talking about the idea of his future in Green Bay and would he consider playing for a team that is, quote, unquote, rebuilding.
Do I still think I can play? Of course. Of course. Can I play at a high level? Yeah. The highest. I think I can win MVP again in the right situation. Right situation, is that Green Bay or is that somewhere else? I'm not sure. But I don't think you should shut down any, opportunity. Like I said, during the season, it's got to be, both sides, like actually wanting, to work together moving forward. And I think there's, more conversations to be had. I think no player wants to be part of any type of rebuild. I said that years ago. Reloads are a lot of fun because you feel like you're close. You're only a couple guys away.
As soon as you put that word out into the ether, the connotations around it will scare people away. Not just in terms of your fan base, who's already kind of in a weird spot, but for potential free agents who would be considering coming to play for you, unless you're Jacksonville and you're paying the we suck luxury tax, the way that they had to on Christian Kirk and a couple of other, Brandon Scherf, a lot of other free agents that they signed. And it worked, by the way. Jacksonville went from what did they have, 2 wins in 2021 to 9 and in the postseason and a division title. It's okay to do that. It's just not okay to say it out loud. 615-737-1045. We'll take your phone calls on this coming up next. You're also going to hear from Greg Cosell of NFL Films on this AFC Championship game rematch from a year ago between the Chiefs and the Bengals. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back. Rebuild. What's that word mean to you? Does it get you triggered? Does it excite you in the offseason, the season of hope, where nobody loses? Except, the teams who didn't make the playoffs and are sitting their asses at home. That's the status of the Tennessee Titans right now, and we played for you earlier the clip of Ran Carthon, the new GM, talking about not viewing this as a competitive roster at this point, not something that he considers to be a rebuild. Now, I think we've well addressed the negative connotation that just is associated with that word and how many bad repercussions that can have, even if truly this is a franchise that is in need of one, whether it's a reboot, retool, rebuild, whatever you want to call it, re-something.
Well, there's the issue. I feel like you're lumping all of those into the same thing, where we just heard from Aaron Rodgers, and to a guy like Aaron Rodgers, those things are very, very different. Said, I don't want to rebuild or retool. Now, that's fun. I'll be a part of a retool, a reload, but not a rebuild.
Reload is different. Retool and rebuild are
reload.
basically the same thing.
Reload is the word I was going for.
Retool. I
think most people view those two things in a very, very different light. When a rebuild is having to go to the bottom to be able to work your way back to the top, where a reload is not having to bottom out in that way and still finding a different way to be competitive with different pieces and different building blocks.
I really do think it depends on your perception. Like I really think it's about how the word hits you. I think for all of the different things that come to mind, well, in fact, we can go to the phones on this 615-737-1045. Are the Titans in need of a rebuild? And do you want to hear that word around them? Those are two different questions. Luke in Nashville is first. Hey, Luke.
Hey, guys. How y'all doing today?
Well, thank you.
First of all, I'd like to say you are dead on the money with you cannot mention the word rebuild in Rand's position just because of the ticket sales. However, if you're a GM going into a new team, what we have on paper, it should be exciting. We have a top 5 interior defensive lineman. We have a top 10 outside edge rusher in Helllander when healthy. Weaver showed promise. Our defense has a lot of promise to it. We are a couple pieces from the offensive line, and who knows what's going to happen with the quarterback situation from being back to where we should be, I believe. Our Trey Barker showed promise. The rookie tight end, I'll butcher his name if I try to say it, he has showed a lot of promise, and there's a lot of good pieces to, I don't want to say rebuild, but retool around definitely. So I'll hang up and listen, and y'all have a great day, okay?
Thank you for the call, Luke, and we appreciate it. Hope you have a great day as well. It depends on what part, the offense. Okay, so let's take this by pieces, shall we? Because it doesn't necessarily have to mean the whole team. What's the biggest issue that you have with the Tennessee Titans right now generally? Offense.
Yeah, it's points.
Offense.
Couldn't score 28 points in a game this season.
Not once.
First time since 84.
The only team this season to not be able to achieve 28 points in a game. It is as big an indictment as any in the modern day NFL. Not just that, it's that they couldn't get over 16 in the last month of the season. 16 points, that is, and that was in the finale against the Jags. In the 7-game losing streak, the most that they scored was 22 points. Offense, 3 and outs, the inability to sustain. All of these things are why they're looking for a new offensive coordinator and in need of a legitimate rebuild on that side of the ball. Defensively, it can look more like a retool because you do have promising young players on rookie deals, some expensive veteran ones, right? Because now Amani Hooker's been paid. Kevin Byard is making a lot of money. Jeff Simmons is in line, even though he's technically still under contract and they have the 5th-year option at their disposal. Jeff Simmons will at some point receive from the Titans or somebody else a lucrative contract. Harold Landry is on his 2nd deal. And a lot of the guys who you're looking around at who were cost-effective, David Long is a former 6th-round pick, if memory serves. David Long is in line for a contract, a new contract, as his contract has officially expired with Nate Davis, as well as a part of that 2019 class. So the defense there's less heavy lifting on defense, but there's still a lot of pieces that need to be in place. If they cut Bud, they need another pass rusher. I've seen what Jeff and Harold look like, just them. And then not just them. There were some other parts and pieces out there. And Rashad Weaver is fine. I don't think Rashad was as good, I think, as you could have asked him to be this year. I think that he's a functional player. I think he's a great rotational player. That's not a solution if you cut Bud Dupree. You need another pass rusher to pair with Harold. Because otherwise, you had Harold and Jeff in 2020 for all the good it did you. Danico Autry, you need to have options there. His season was derailed by this knee injury, and that was the thing that kept him basically out of the entirety of training camp. He's getting older, and while he is still an incredibly effective, or was when last we saw him, an incredibly effective and active player, you have to have an insurance policy there as well. So defensively, and then we haven't even talked about corner. They need another corner. I don't trust Caleb Farley at all. At all. What reason do you have? So less of a rebuild on the offensive side of the ball, but there's no question you have questions on the defensive side. Chris in Mount Juliet is next. Hey, Chris.
Hey, how's it going, Doug?
Well.
All right. I think there's degrees to this, but for me, I'll believe we're in a rebuild when we start doing moves that long-term may be the right decision, but hurt us in the short term. For instance, if they were to ship off in just a strange trade Jeffrey Simmons for like a first and a second or something like that, like hoarding draft capital, getting rid of some younger players that definitely don't help the team, that's when I'm like, okay, that's a rebuild. We're kind of not necessarily tanking, but it's a long-term issue rather than a short-term one.
Well, wait, Chris, not to interrupt you, but isn't that what happened with AJ? Hasn't that already happened?
Well, here's the thing. We got the new GM coming in, so does he believe we're in a rebuild? If that's what John Robinson was going for, he did a real bad job of it, bud.
Yeah, I appreciate the call. Thank you, Chris.
But that's where I'm at when I think about the term rebuild, on where the Titans are right now. Because, yeah, the Titans traded away A.J. Brown, but the goal was still to win the AFC South and still make
They had it. They had a 4-game lead.
Yeah, the goal was still to make a playoff push and to find ways to win and to hope that Traylon Burks could somewhat replicate that production along with Robert Woods. And obviously, that did not work out. But I don't think they traded A.J. Brown with the intention of, all right, let's tear it down here, and then we'll maybe in 2-3 years we'll be back to being contenders. Like, no. Their goal didn't change.
I think they were going to try and make the best of the circumstances, but I think in trading AJ, it's an acknowledgement of a soft reset. I don't think there's any disputing that.
Yeah, but I just think the terms rebuild and reload are completely different. Completely different.
Okay, where are they? Do you think they are in a position to reload?
I think that's their goal. Yeah. I don't think Mike Vrabel's signing up for a quote-unquote rebuild.
No, I don't think he is either.
I think if a GM came in interviewing saying, no, I want to tear this thing down and build it back up my way, they'd be like, oh, well, that's not what our coach wants. So on to the next.
Mike, I think any GM who would utter that in front of Mike Vrabel would not be in that situation for long.
Yeah, so if Titans fans have no interest in a rebuild in that long-term process of having to hit the bottom to climb your way back to the top, then the team isn't looking to do that either, very clearly.
There are quotes, just as a side note, and then we'll get back to the phones. There are quotes coming out of Robert Saleh. I guess Robert Saleh is having a press conference with the coaching changes on the staff. You see this from Rich Cimini, who's their ESPN Jets reporter?
Yeah, about Hackett.
No, about Keith Carter.
Oh, I've just seen his comments on Nathaniel Hackett.
Robert Saleh says he was quote unquote shocked that Keith Carter was fired by the Titans. I mean, shocked. I don't necessarily know, because I think the offensive line, based on my understanding, the offensive line room was not overwhelmingly a fan of Keith Carter, just generally throughout the course of several seasons at this point. And listen, my interactions with Keith were always very pleasant. He's somebody who came with Mike, who was hired by Mike Vrabel on Mike Vrabel's first staff, and I think he's done a lot of good work, or did a lot of good work during his tenure here, and what he was given this year was an untenable situation. I can't speak to Keith Carter's relationship with Mike Vrabel and how that might have changed. But I do think that a lot more people should have been surprised to see Keith Carter fired than maybe Anthony Midget, for example, who wasn't here for very long and obviously was not able to successfully get the defensive backs to a place, and specifically the corners, because they do have a safeties coach and a secondary coach. Safeties coach is an ancillary role to the secondary coach. But I do think that the case for Anthony Midget, for example, just on performance of the group alone, was way more understandable than what Keith Carter was dealt and what Keith Carter had to try and make work this season. Anyway. Brian in Clarksville next. Hey, Brian.
Hey, Buck. I appreciate taking the call. I think the word rebuild makes you go back to, say, Jacksonville 2 years ago before Etienne and the quarterback. I think when you rebuild, you can look at position groups. There's no doubt the offensive line, as you said, needs to be rebuilt. There's no doubt that the cornerback position needs to be rebuilt. You can retool, in my opinion, every other position with short-term fixes. You don't have to sign that 5-year, 6-year, 7-year deal. You can sign the short-term fix and get to prosperity quicker that way than having to scrap it down to the bottom. And to me, a rebuild says you scrap it down to even the head coaching change and rebuild from there. So appreciate you guys.
Thank you for the call, Brian. 615-737-1045. It just depends. I think it depends on the individual and who you ask, how they kind of view this thing. Now, I think we all have general consensus about what it is that the needs are, how far this team has fallen, and where the expectation is. But I think beyond that, it kind of depends on how you view each specific area. How much blame you put on the offensive line versus Ryan Tannehill. How much blame you put on the coaching staff versus the personnel. And the adjustment, how much blame you put on the people responsible for selecting the personnel under a different regime, and how much Ran Carthon has to do to kind of correct those mistakes. All of that is a worthwhile conversation at this point.
I think most people, it's largely semantics, but I think most people view the word rebuild in a pretty similar light.
Agreed. With a negative connotation.
Yeah.
And that is a word that, even if it is what they might be doing, even if they don't publicly acknowledge it, even if it is dismissed, as Ran Carthon did in his press conference, to hear it is different than to do it. And I think to kind of keep people, you have to keep the vibes high right now more than any other time, because once you get in the season, then it's beyond your control. The work and in theory, the damage, whatever may happen, the good and the bad, it's done. Like that, you just got to eat it once you get into the season. Right now, the worst thing that you can do is come out at your introductory press conference in ways that Ran Carthon did not and say the word rebuild. Because you're already dealing with a teetering fan base, a fan base that is still very young in terms of the NFL world with the Tennessee Titans, and how much is actually like entrenched Titans fans versus people moving here who are excited about a winning football team. You go to a couple of games, you watch a couple of games at the bars, you're feeling good, the energy's high. It's kind of like the Preds during the Stanley Cup and everything that came after, right? It was a little bit more of a fad than it was a concrete fan base. And I think you've seen the energy tail off in the years since. That's kind of the same vibe that I've got from the Titans since 2019, where it's not as much a core group of fans as you are, you got your season ticket holders and the people who have been fans of the Houston Oilers and were excited about the NFL coming to Nashville, and Eddie George and Steve McNair and everything that's happened since then, which has been literally a generation of football fans, and how you're trying to win more of those over and keep more of those, as many as humanly possible, in ways that last year's product was just clearly not capable of doing.
Blake on YouTube says the Preds are a much more concrete fan base than the Titans.
Oh, I disagree with that.
Yeah, I just think it's just football.
It's football versus hockey.
Yeah,
like it's
in
just
the South. It's just, I don't think it's close.
No, it's not. I don't even know how you can make that comparison.
Yeah. So I feel like you're painting this in a light to where, Carthon avoided using the word rebuild in a presser because you just can't say that in a presser, but that is kind of what the Titans are doing. I feel like that's where you're going here. Where I feel like
I'm not going to speak for the man. All I'm saying is you look at the facts, you look at the situation, you look at the roster, you look at what happened, and there has to be some acknowledgement, even if he doesn't say it publicly, of okay, this thing really, really needs some work. That I think is and you try not to read too much into non-answers, right? because the Ryan Tannehill question was a non-answer. He was like, I just got here. I need more time. I don't think that's fair to make any discerning or any discernments right now on the quarterback situation. I just got here. Okay, like you got to have some idea of what the quarterback situation is for you to get this job. And I'm not saying that he's being disingenuous. I'm just saying that there has to be some level of diplomacy, some level of politicking, essentially, that you're doing at your introductory press conference. And one of those things, buzzword, rebuild, don't do it.
Absolutely. But when he says, no, I think this team is competitive, good to great. We talk about good to great and the cliche. But when he says those things, I do believe that is the direction the franchise wants to go in. I don't think that,
sure.
Some of that's diplomacy, press conference stuff, but I very much believe that is the goal here, is to continue to stay competitive. Okay, find out how can we win this division and maybe reopen this window.
No, I think that vibes with the ethos that what's currently here, as he said, his job is to get with Mike Vrabel first and foremost, to get on the same page, to kind of ride this thing out and understand how he can improve what is currently in existence and what new ideas and concepts he can provide to an existing structure that he feels is going to be successful. I don't think Ran Carthon's turning around once the doors closed on the opening press conference and saying, man, fooled them. This thing's a total rebuild, suckers. No, I'm not saying that at all. I think that you have to. I think that more than anything, no matter how you feel about it, you have to project a certain way, right? It's like Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel's not going to get up there in the middle of the 7-game losing streak and be like, yeah, we suck. What are we going to do? Wave the white flag. No, that's not how these people operate, nor should you want them to. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. We need to make fun of one SEC fan base that insists on bandwagoning one of the NFL's Final Four teams. We're going to make a decision on whether they should be allowed to do so coming up next. All right, you want to talk some smack to an SEC fan base? Not Vols fans, don't worry. Or Bama fans. Well, I don't know. Do we have some heat for Bama fans as a part of this conversation?
I absolutely think they belong in this conversation.
That's not where I intended to go with this.
Well, it's all we can lump it together.
Okay. Well, you could. Alabama fans can go after Lucas. Meanwhile, I got something for LSU. The way that a lot of, and I don't know if this is just like a Tennessee thing, there does seem to be a discernible difference between Tennessee Vols fans and Tennessee Titans fans. There is some crossover. Obviously, one is an incredibly historic fan base in the Vols. Over 100 years of playing football. It's generational. It's passed down. It's something that's in your blood. Titans are newer. Titans about 25 years. Titans, a little, like we said, a little more of a fad than what it is that the Vols are when you look at, like, local fan bases. And it's always funny to me to see how many Vols fans are not Titans fans or how many Titans fans are not Vols fans. I think a lot of that has to do with Derrick Henry because and Julio Jones. Hell, I think Titans radio picked up affiliates in, like, northern Alabama because of Julio.
In Foley, Alabama, his hometown. I mean, Bama fans are Titans fans strictly because of Henry and Rashaan Evans' stint here. Speaking of that, a lot of Tennessee fans that aren't Titans fans were for the last couple weeks of the season because of one Joshua Dobbs.
So
happy birthday to Joshua Dobbs.
What birthday?
Happy birthday to him. I don't care. Good luck.
I do care.
How old do you think Josh is?
I bet he's 27.
He is 28.
28. Okay. Excellent. So looking at the situation for LSU fans, there is a tremendous amount of them that are now bandwagoning the Cincinnati Bengals for obvious reasons because of Joe Burrow. Now.
And?
Jamar Chase. Are those the only two LSU Tigers on the roster at present?
If there are others, then those are the two ones.
Those are the two ones.
Those are the reason that. Plus, it's the Bengals and still Tigers.
Bayou Tigers, all the whole
Bayou
nine.
Bengals.
Bayou Bengals, whatever it is.
Bayou Tigers.
Well, same thing. Oh, you didn't know ECU? What are you laughing at back there? Aren't you still supposed to be in the shadows? Sounds like somebody's choking somebody out back there. I'm concerned. Is any of this on camera? Is he just shouting in the background?
No, he's just lurking back there.
God, I never know when he's there. I wish that onion would have taken you out.
Leave Bert alone.
Now, maybe I'm not the best person to criticize because I've told you, I totally sold out for UT this year. I'm in love with their baseball team. I am, I feel like I pick an SEC team to bandwagon every year because I don't have a college football team like that, like Notre Dame, whatever. But maybe I'm not the best person to criticize LSU turned Bengals fans for bandwagoning the Bengals through the course of the postseason because they do have the best quarterback and they do have the best wide receiver. It's hard for me to fault them, but it's getting a little much, right? Like it's getting a little much where you gotta take a deep breath and like back it off because LSU, the Saints are one of the closest to collegiate fan bases that the NFL has. Like
Saints and the Bills. The Bills remind me of a college football fan base.
Sure, but this is not a conversation about them. I'm just talking about in terms of the New Orleans Saints. People in Louisiana love the Saints. So just because the Saints had a wretched year and you don't have Drew Brees anymore, I feel like you shouldn't be allowed to just pick up and move your fandom over to the Bengals, the team that just so happens to have been to the Super Bowl last season and likely, I think they should be able to handle the Chiefs on Sunday. We'll see. Likely will end up in the Super Bowl for a second straight year just because they got your boys. Like I feel like LSU fans deserve a little more smoke than that.
Well, I do think you can cheer for those guys individually.
Oh, sure.
I think college fan bases are so rabid in that way that they get attached to these guys. Now, the Alabama thing with Jalen Hurts can be a little bit different because Alabama doesn't have an NFL team.
Well, yes, and I think that's why they're Alabama football and Kentucky basketball. There's nothing else, right? They have no professional sports teams of note that would take up any more of their fandom. So they go all in on Bama football and Kentucky basketball. And the worst of them, Producer Reed on the Primetime Show, who I work with, Producer Reed is both an Alabama football fan and a Kentucky basketball fan,
Reed.
which means I hate him.
Oh, Reed.
Which means I hate him.
Come on, Reed.
I know he's an incredible human being. It's his only character flaw, his only one. So I think that Bama fans who are trying now to bandwagon the Eagles because of not just Jalen Hurts, it's a similar situation. Devontae Smith, who's a stud wide receiver, a Heisman Trophy winner. They're all over the place from Alabama in the NFL. I can't think of another notable Alabama player. I'm sure there is another Alabama player on the Eagles roster, but I can't think of a hugely notable one at this point. V-Love has chimed in on Twitter. @BuckRising is where you can interact with the show. Also, Saints and Bengals fans who have been beefing over who dat and who day for years. Blasphemous for them to homie hop because of Burrow and Chase. I agree with that assessment, but I do think that Alabama fans who were actively wanting Jalen Hurts benched for Tua Tagovailoa, and by the way, rightfully so at the time, who are now trying to gravitate towards the Eagles because of the Hurts-Smith connection, and also Super Bowl favorites at this point. I feel like they should get more heat than the Bengal or the Saints turned Bengals fans because of the LSU connection there.
I totally disagree. I think the LSU thing is more inexcusable because you have an NFL team in your neighborhood with the Saints. I think Alabama fans have every right to claim Jalen Hurts and to root for Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith and the former Bama players on the Eagles roster. But the conversation's about Hurts because some people are upset that Bama fans are out here claiming Hurts after they benched him and he transferred out to Oklahoma. By the way, Landon Dickerson also.
Oh, right, the center?
Yeah, also a former Alabama player. But is he a center?
No, I think he might be a guard.
Kelsey's
yeah, that's right. Sorry. Wasn't he a center in college?
Yes.
Okay.
I think Bama fans have every right to claim Jalen Hurts. He won you 2 SEC titles. He was one of the best teammates of the Nick Saban era in the way he kind of took a step back and supported Tua in that national championship game, and he was benched at halftime. Very close with Tua coming in, replacing him in the SEC championship game the following season, leading Alabama to a comeback win over Georgia after Tua got hurt. It was a very, very amicable split where Jalen Hurts and Nick Saban sat down and Saban saying, okay, let's talk about your options here. Understanding that Tua was the guy and Saban helping him find the best situation, which he did with Lincoln Riley in Oklahoma. I think Alabama fans, and I say this as a Tennessee grad that grew up in Birmingham, hating Alabama more than anything in my life. I think they have every right to claim Jalen Hurts because I would do the same. Like Ohio State fans do not have a right, in my mind, to claim Joe Burrow. Not even a little bit.
No.
He did nothing. He's from Ohio. He started at Ohio State. He did nothing for your program.
Like Georgia fans and Justin Fields. Get out of here.
Get out of here with that. Absolutely. But Jalen Hurts did a ton for Alabama, starting as a freshman, winning the SEC, going undefeated and winning the SEC championship as a true freshman, and then winning the SEC title again, coming in for Tua, willingly getting benched, accepting that Tua was the right move to make at halftime of that national championship game against Georgia and not pouting about it, being a good teammate, running onto the field to celebrate after that game, the 2nd and 26 in overtime. Yeah, I have absolutely no problem with Bama fans claiming Hurts.
Well, I think you've made the case. I think you've made the case well, and I do think that the differentiating factor should be there are no professional football teams in the state of Alabama. So really, with their players scattered all over the NFL, they can really choose from NFL teams as they like. Because, I mean, geographically, who would it be? It would be the Titans
or
Falcons, or Saints?
Yeah, there are some. Now, there are Titans fans in Alabama, and more so since Henry became a star. Sure. There's Birmingham. Jocks Radio, our sister station in Birmingham, the biggest sports station in the state of Alabama, is a Titans radio station. And there's a lot of, Falcons fans from the Julio days in Atlanta. So they kind of pick and choose. But it's hard when you don't have that personal connection.
It's so hard. It's so hard for Alabama fans to have NFL players scattered all over.
No, stop. I'm talking about
pro football universe. Yes, pour them.
I'm talking about if you're from a state that doesn't have that pro team. Like it's hard to generate that connection. So fans do it based on the players that they've established those connections with in college, and they go on to play elsewhere.
Evan Owens tweets us, Auburn fans say we Bama fans can't claim Hurts because he transferred. I don't think anyone except Oklahoma fans associate him with the Sooners.
I don't. When I think Jalen
I
Hurts,
do
think
associate him more with Alabama than I do
Absolutely.
with Oklahoma, even if he was great at Oklahoma.
He was, yeah. And he took the time at Alabama to develop as a passer, understanding what he needed to work on while he was sitting behind Tua. And that year he spent behind Tua is a huge reason developmentally why he is where he is now, leading the Eagles in the NFC Championship.
615-737-1045 is the number. We'll take your phone calls on this momentarily. We're also going to get into some Greg Cosell, easy for me to say, analysis of the 49ers on offense, given that Titans fans have a particular investment in how well they've done in San Francisco with their personnel. That's coming up next. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
It is 12:03. Good afternoon from the Superbook.com sports desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. Some coaching news in the NFL. The New York Jets have a new offensive coordinator. It is former Broncos head coach Nathaniel Hackett. Adam Schefter also reporting that the Jets have also hired former Titans offensive line coach Keith Carter as the O-line coach and run game coordinator in New York. Tonight, the Nashville Predators homestand continues. They host the New Jersey Devils. It is a 7 p.m. puck drop at Bridgestone Arena. Preds are 3 points back of a wild card spot in the West. And the Lady Vols play host to 5th-ranked UConn at Thompson Bowling Arena. That is a 7 p.m. tip-off. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Here on 104.5 The Zone. We're happy to have you guys here. Robert, Lucas, and myself with you until 1 o'clock, so jump in at any point. 615-737-1045 is the number. We're very happy to have you no matter where you're listening. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, FM radio, podcast after the fact, wherever you are. Thank you for spending some time. Get to your phone calls here in just a second. We're going to talk about a little bit about the two games coming up this weekend. AFC, NFC championship game. Very exciting stuff. And what should be, I think it's the four best teams left in the field. Maybe if Buffalo had made it, you'd say the same thing. Maybe, maybe not. But I feel like the Bengals have earned the benefit of the doubt at this stage by saying, yes, this is the best four teams remaining in the NFL.
3 out of the 4, same as last season.
Niners, Chiefs, and Bengals. Eagles' first championship game since 2017.
Yeah, so the Eagles replace who do the Eagles replace? The Rams.
Yes, because the Rams won the Super Bowl. So we will talk. You'll hear Greg Cosell's analysis. Maybe, Lucas, you want to save the AFC championship game stuff for tomorrow? Since we have a whole nother day to talk about this thing and talk specifically about the 49ers, given that's what the Titans fans care the most about from a personnel standpoint. We will do that then, and meanwhile, we'll take your calls. Cam in Old Hickory up first. Hey, Cam.
Hey, this is Tim.
Tim, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Hey, you started up pretty good with this Joe Burrow thing. I grew up in Tennessee, Mount Juliet. First of all, you forgot the main bandwagon hopper when Peyton Manning went to the Colts.
Yes.
So many Indianapolis fans, and they're the same division as the Titans, so that's a lot more blatant than what the LSU people are doing.
Inexcusable.
But, yeah, you're young, but I remember that's pretty heavy when, all the Tennessee fans all of a sudden become Indianapolis Colts fans. But I'm a Vikings fan, number one. I grew up here. We didn't have no team back when I was a kid, so I loved the Vikings. And when the Titans came, I liked the Titans.
Sure.
Now, I don't love the Bengals. I just want Joe Burrow to mainly beat the overhyped Josh Allen and Mahomes. He's a better quarterback, but he never gets the credit he deserves, but he constantly beats them. Well, that's one reason I root for him. And, I know a lot of maybe LSU fans just root for him to hop on the bandwagon, but I'm really not doing that. I just get so sick of them touting up Mahomes, and, he constantly gets beat by Joe Burrow. So that's all I got.
Joe Burrow is undefeated against Mahomes. You're not wrong by any stretch of the imagination, Cam. Thank you.
Mahomes probably going to win MVP if he does anything this next week. And Joe Burrow, the Cincinnati coach, was mad because that game they canceled. He was so mad. Maybe he said that he thought that would be a great opportunity for Joe Burrow to get to be the lead dog in the MVP race, and that just got all shot to you know what. But that's all I got. Just thought you started up good. I love you, Buck, and good job.
Thank you for the call, Cam.
But yeah,
I love you too, buddy.
The contingent of Tennessee fans that went to the Colts after Peyton, and that was around the same time as the Titans came to Nashville. But there is way too big a number of Tennessee Vols fans that just picked another NFL team, which has never made any sense to me.
Even once the Titans were here.
I have Tennessee fans that are my age, that I knew in college, that went to school around the same time I did, that are the most diehard, born and raised Tennessee fans. because they were born and raised in the state of Tennessee. So naturally they are Vols fans, but are Steeler fans, Colts fans, Cowboys fans. And it's the logic. There's no logic to that. That if you chose your college team based on your home, where you're from, your identity with the state, why would that not apply to the team, the NFL team in your state?
I mean, I get it if it's like a monster fan base, like a national fan base. Packers, Cowboys, Steelers. Those are, I think, the three biggest that I see in Nashville, non-Titans division, right? Like non-Titans related. Other NFL fans who, for whatever reason, whether they were fans before the Titans came here from Houston, whether they were already, whether their family was a certain type of fan, even once the Titans got here and they grew up watching another team. Like those, I totally get.
Yeah,
Niners,
there are circumstances, sure.
Totally understanding of that. But like East Tennesseans specifically, they don't give a bleep about the Titans. In my experience, and I can't speak for West Tennessee, but like West Tennessee seems more Cowboys than anything else, based on, just interactions. I guess the Titans seem to be specific to Middle Tennessee and, a little bit of Northern Georgia, Northern Alabama, maybe a little bit of Kentucky at this point. Like geographically, it doesn't make sense. I mean, it does, but it really doesn't. So I can't answer that question. Now, the Titans also, for a good portion of their existence, have been not a good football team. Like an also-ran and have gone up, have been growing up in the shadow of the aforementioned Peyton Manning, who is favorite son from the University of Tennessee. So I do get it, I guess. Like you don't want to come into this thing rooting for bad football, rooting for a bad football team, and all of a sudden you've got Jake Locker and you're like, but Peyton Manning played at Tennessee. That looks like they're having way more fun than we are. Like, come on. I kind of don't blame people for that.
I've just never been able to relate to that as far as being able to attach yourself without having some sort of connection to that place. Like,
but the connection is Peyton.
Sure, fair enough. But
Peyton is the connection.
Yeah.
There's no disputing that. And in fact, Peyton, I mean, so I'll just take it from the state of Indiana. You want to talk about fad fan bases? Colts, absolutely. Now, there's a generation of them, particularly my age, that will be Colts fans for the rest of their lives because of Peyton Manning. But everybody who came before Peyton, they didn't give a bleep about Jim Harbaugh. The only thing that mattered in the state of Indiana prior to Peyton Manning's existence there is IndyCar and Indiana basketball. Even though Purdue's kind of the better basketball team as of late.
Kind of.
I know. They're the number one team in the country right now. I don't want to talk about it.
That was one of the weaker game day environments of the Titans' road schedule this year, in my opinion.
Colts?
Yes.
Yeah.
That had no juice. And I know the Titans jumped out to a big lead in the first half.
It was a bleep show of a game.
Even when the Colts came back, I just was not feeling any energy in that building whatsoever.
Now, there have been times where that's not so. Like,
I'm sure, yeah.
Lucas Oil, when it first opened, and really through the Luck years, like that place was rocking. But when you talk about, like, I consider the Preds to still be in a fad fan base era, for lack of a better term, even though I think one of the most enjoyable tickets in town is to go to a Preds game, just casually. I don't care about hockey, but I love to go to Preds games. I think the Titans are kind of like this as far as NFL fan bases go. I think there are diehard Titans fans. I think the vast majority of people just looking for something to do, and we're an event city. And we have a lot of different people coming in already with other NFL allegiances because of the transplant nature of our consistently growing population. So I think Nashville and the Tennessee Titans in particular are unique that way. But beyond that, like, I think Colts fans are as big a fad as any out there because they did have 20 years of Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck, and they were like,
yeah, it's easy.
What now? Matt, what do you mean I have to deal with a Matt Ryan season?
Yeah, why aren't you good at football? Like, if I were you, I would just simply not lose games like we do, I would simply go get a franchise quarterback.
Simply, yes. It's just so easy. Anyway, we've spent entirely too much time on that. Carmen Vitali of Fox Sports is going to join us. Coming up next, we're going to talk about an article that she wrote for Fox talking about what a potential Aaron Rodgers trade might look like. And that just became much more real given that one NFL franchise just hired Aaron's former OC to be their next OC. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. All right, let's do this thing. Now, I know many people are already annoyed of the Aaron Rodgers conversation, but news today makes this a more relevant discussion. So we welcome in our friend Carmen Vitali of Fox Sports. She's their NFC North reporter. She wrote an article for FoxSports.com. What could an Aaron Rodgers trade look like? It's complicated, like a Facebook relationship. What's up, Carm?
Hi, Buck. It's so good to hear from you. I feel like I only get a text when it's like, oh, wait, right. I have a friend that does these things that maybe could, talk about it.
Excuse me. I feel like
I don't ever get a text outside of that.
No, I almost said a bad word on the radio that I can't say. I feel like you are one of the first people that I call anytime we're at the combine.
Yeah, but I thought we were friends outside of work, Buck.
We are. Carmen, you live in Los Angeles, and apparently you have two homes now that you're big time Fox Sports. Los Angeles or Chicago. I feel like that's an excuse. We are the kind of people that, if the Titans are in Tampa Bay for a week long of training camp, I'm going to hit you up, and it's going to be like we just saw each other at the combine. But other than that, right. I don't know why this needs to be I don't know why this needs to be a 24/7 thing, even though I do love you very much.
Wow. No, you're entirely right. I really actually love sports media friends that are like that. And you get together and it's like no time at all has passed. And honestly, seasons just go by. And I think we've known each other now for 4 or 5 years, and it's really disconcerting.
Yeah. So breadsticks and shots at Kilroy's at the combine, and then we'll figure this out later. Okay. It's going to be okay. I hear sources say that this is one of the best performing articles on FoxSports.com currently.
Oh,
I can't figure out why. With today's news that Nathaniel Hackett, formerly of the Denver Broncos, then formerly of the Green Bay Packers, becoming the Jets offensive coordinator, how much more real does this make a potential Aaron Rodgers trade?
I think it makes it a lot more real, quite honestly. And I think that this is all but signaling that this is Joe Douglas's intention. And he wants to entice Aaron Rodgers because Aaron Rodgers can choose where he goes if he ultimately decides to play football next year. We don't know that that is the case quite yet. He said that he has not made a decision whether or not he's going to retire, but he has also proved to be a little bit more open to going somewhere else. But that is ultimately up to him. The Packers have said they want him back. So he can kind of pull all of the puppet strings in this situation. And I have to imagine going with an offensive coordinator to a good situation in New York. Let's be real here. They've got a really good defense. They could use a little bit more work on that offensive line, but they've got some really exciting weapons too on offense. And then with an offensive coordinator that you won your last 2 MVPs underneath. So it seems like a good situation that they're setting up to give to Aaron Rodgers on a silver platter.
So, as far as the puppet master element of Aaron Rodgers, why is this any different than the last 2 off seasons with him, Carm?
I don't know that it is, really. And I feel like he said he's not going to hold Green Bay hostage, but and granted, free agency hasn't come up, all that other thing, but there are dominoes that still need to fall that are waiting on his decision. And this Green Bay front office has to be scrambling at this point, trying to figure out all of the different scenarios that could play out here, even if he tells them that he's going to play football tomorrow. And they are in cap hell. They need to shave off about $14 million, I believe, off the cap. And there aren't a lot of easy ways to do that, and even with trading Aaron Rodgers. And they're kind of in between a rock and a hard place. And so I think that the easier part for them is if he does stay. But if he doesn't want to, they're not going to make him either.
Carmen Vitali of Fox Sports is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. At Carmi V is where you can follow her on Twitter. And, of course, FoxSports.com is where you can read it. So the complicated part of the trade, $60 million cash money is what this man is owed next year. How much further do you, and obviously I don't want you to give away all the details that are in the article. I want people to read what is one of the best performing articles on FoxSports.com.
Oh, my God.
But how much more complicated does it get?
So there are situations where if Green Bay decides to trade him prior to the June 1 deadline, they can't save any money off the cap. In fact, they add money to their cap hit and how much they're going to be over. They add about $8 million because he will be due a $40 million cap hit in dead money at that point. But then you basically get to take advantage of any collateral you would get for him in the form of draft picks immediately. You could put those towards the 2023 draft. You could acquire draft capital in this draft. Now, if they wait till after 6-1, they can actually save $15 million on the cap, but then you're delaying any return on Rodgers to 2024. And you haven't even picked up Jordan Love's fifth-year option yet. That's the other part of this whole puzzle, too, is you've got a quarterback on his rookie deal still. And honestly, I think they've kind of missed the window with him as it is to build around him and to kind of take advantage of the fact they have a quarterback on a rookie contract, because they've tied up so much money with Aaron Rodgers and they just can't seem to move him. I think what they should have done is probably moved him last year. So now there's, like, again, that's why it's complicated. Like, I'm talking in circles because there's not a really great option for Green Bay.
Right.
And even if he does stay, his cap hit continues to escalate as per his contract the farther we go into this. They do have an out after 2024, or like into the 2024 season, but it's still expensive. Like, there is no getting out of this deal without having to shed or pay this man some serious money. His cap hit is actually only 31.6 going into next season, because some of that is the 58.3 million due to him is 58.3 of it is 55 of it. I'm getting my numbers confused. They're all in the article. Most of it is an option bonus. So if they exercise it, then it brings his cap hit down to 31.3, which makes it a little bit more attractive also for other teams. But in the way that I was kind of incredulous at all these numbers, and I was like, is a team willing to do this? Is a team willing to trade with Green Bay and pay all of this money up front? It's like, European soccer levels of buyouts with, as for trade capital, and then having to pay this exorbitant salary. And I talked to a couple of coaches around the league and they were like, absolutely. And I'm like, this is insane.
Well, this is the nature of quarterback thirsty teams in the NFL, right? And we understand that Peter King had reported that Green Bay will only trade him to an AFC team. They don't want this dude coming back to haunt them at any point in the next couple of seasons. Should they end up moving on from him, or should he end up moving on from them, is probably the more appropriate way to put it. So we'll see what happens with Aaron Rodgers. But given that you cover this entire division, the Chicago Bears, the number 1 overall pick, I was having somebody make the case to me this morning that Chicago should draft a quarterback. The percentage chance of that happening is what with Justin Fields on the roster?
Well, I think that it's interesting if you're talking about drafting a quarterback with the intention to trade that, or drafting a quarterback with the intention to use him. I think there's very little chance that you are drafting a quarterback with the intention of him, especially with the number 1 overall pick, to sit behind Justin Fields. And I don't think that it makes any sense whatsoever to start over again from square one. That's why we're still waiting on the full evaluation of Justin Fields right now, is because it's his second offensive coordinator and not even 2 full seasons of being the starter. And you need to give him time to develop within a system that is being tailored towards him also. Like, Luke Getsy is building this offensive system around Justin Fields. This last year wasn't great. They stripped the entire roster down to the studs. And I thought that they would maybe keep like a bubble around Justin Fields, like making sure they were still investing in offensive line so as not to get him killed. But then you realize that the man can run and maybe he can get himself out of danger, although he was injured. There's a ton of factors here, but everything leads me to believe that they are still going to have to try with Justin Fields. You gave up so much capital to get him, and I realize that was a prior regime, but you don't want to start all over again. New quarterback, learning a new system. You're not going to get anywhere with that. You're not going to build the foundation. That's what the GM Ryan Poles, Matt Eberflus are very big about, the fact that they're building a foundation. And if you already take away one of the bricks that you've laid, that's not building a foundation at all. So I really think there's 0% chance that they're going to take a quarterback with the intention of using him. Now, if you want to play some chess and you want to grab one of those quarterbacks because you think that the trade value for them once they're already on your roster is going to be more than you would get for the pick itself, I don't know. That's above my pay grade, but I don't see them getting a quarterback to use.
At Carmi V is where you follow her on Twitter. Can anything be done to stop the Minnesota Vikings from being choking dogs?
I realized I have not. This is my first year covering the division. I grew up outside of Chicago, so I grew up with these teams and have witnessed from afar the plight of the Minnesota Vikings and their fan base. And I really thought that this year was going to be different, and I realized how naive that really was.
Yes.
I will say, I do think that it was one of Kirk Cousins' best years. They did not lose because of Kirk Cousins, which I do think is different. So they have issues still, but they're different issues. And they did fire their defensive coordinator. Not that I think that Ed Donatel is a bad defensive coordinator. Obviously, he's had decades upon decades in the NFL. I think the game maybe has passed him by a little bit, and that's what they need, some new creative blood. I mean, you've got Neil Hunter and Zadarius Smith on either side of that line. You should be able to be adding to the quarterback on a consistent basis. So they're making the right moves, and I'm optimistic about the future while also understanding that I'm very naive in how much they've been so close so many times only to just fall catastrophically apart.
Okay, so we are currently on video for those of you watching on Zone TV, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Half the YouTube chat has fallen in love with Carmen. The other half is asking me to ask you questions about something that I'm currently being dragged for. Carmen, did you ever at any point, because I know this is your second favorite thing outside of football, is making fun of me. Did you ever...
Don't give yourself that much credit, Buck.
There she is. Did you at any point in your college career have bottle service at a bar?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not alone here. Bleep all of you. All of you.
Buck, I went to Arizona State.
Okay.
So I wasn't getting bottle service at like a grungy college bar.
Yeah. No, like clubs.
You
and
deserve
stuff
to be
like
dragged for that.
No,
Yeah,
I don't deserve that. It wasn't a grungy. Listen, you have been. Well, I don't know. You've been to Kilroy's in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
But this is Kilroy's in Bloomington. This was a thing that was done there. It's the Arizona State of the Midwest.
I don't know that I buy that, but okay. To be fair, all right, I will come to your defense a little bit. There are people that exist that just buy the bottle because it is a little bit more like the bottle itself, and even if they're at like the bar, like I was out with Jason Pierre-Paul once, and he just bought a bottle to sit on the bar. Like we didn't have a table, nothing else. He was like, it was just a very casual thing. And so I feel like there are people out there that just get bottles because when you have a bunch of people with you, it makes sense.
That's what we did when people come in town. You get a table, you have a big time, and what an incredible name for you to pick back up off the ground. I was out one time with Jason Pierre-Paul.
I ran into him, I should say. I wasn't out with him. I ran into him. Tampa was a very small place.
Important
and
clarification.
those guys were very fun. Important clarification. I did not go out with Jason Pierre-Paul, but I saw him, and because he just had a bottle at the bar, he was, it was everybody come on. It was great.
All right, in the back room, do we feel that this is justification, even though Carmen went to Arizona State as opposed to Indiana, that bottle service in college is not as big an anomaly as you're making it seem?
I wasn't paying attention.
Thank you very much. Carmen Vitali of Fox Sports. Read her great article on all the details on the complications of an Aaron Rodgers trade, and continue to follow her coverage for Fox of the NFC North. Carmen, Joy, Los Angeles, are you going to Senior Bowl?
I will not be at Senior Bowl, unfortunately, which is the first time in quite a few years. I'm very upset about it. But I will be at Super Bowl. So that was kind of they're like, well, you got to go to Super Bowl. And I actually may have some things here to do in LA this weekend. So
okay. Well, what a trade-off. Arizona for Mobile, Alabama. I pity you at this time. All right. Thank you for the time.
Thank you for your thoughts and prayers. Appreciate you.
Thank you for the time, Carmen. It's always fun.
Mm-hmm. Bye, Buck.
Carmen Vitali there with us on 104.5 The Zone. 615-737-1045. So, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. Rodgers. Rodgers is entirely the one most likely to end up back with his current team as opposed to what's happening with Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, what's happening with Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. At this point, it feels like Aaron Rodgers is just kind of doing the same thing over and over again for the last 3 now off seasons in ways that is not holding the Green Bay Packers hostage, but kind of holding the Green Bay Packers hostage. At what point, as an NFL organization, do you get tired of this? This is kind of the fine line, right? Now, there's not players in the NFL like this who can do it at a rate that, for example, the NBA. We've talked about player empowerment in the NBA and how much, in particular, Adam Silver, who's the commissioner of that league, has catered, or probably the more accurate term, kind of kowtowed a little bit to his players, so much so that it has affected the product in considerable ways. Load management, things like the All-Star break that has now been reworked in favor of the players. There's so many different ways that it has kind of been detrimental in the NBA that it's tough to have that kind of impact in the NFL. But Rodgers is as good an example as you'll find. So I think at this stage, it just comes down to the idea of, well, they've said publicly that they want him back, and he's still a high-level player that does need some help, and it's tough to get more help around him with that kind of a cap hit, even if the cap hit is not as bad as the $60 million total cash that he'll receive will be. Are you bonking people in the Zone TV chat?
Bonk.
There was entirely
the
too
Burt bonk.
A Burt bonk. There's entirely too much. I would ask you for the sake of our guests, be professional, shall we? Let's not go crazy just because there's a woman on a sports talk radio show for you to be lecherous over. Let's not get nuts. Bonk. Last call for phone call, 615-737-1045. We'll wrap up the show, do some polls coming up next. Fun show. If you missed any of the boys trying to publicly shame me, any of Carmen Vitali's great analysis, check out the podcast. It's real self-involved. It's called The Buck Rising Show in your favorite podcast feed. Also, while you're doing some podcasts, let's make sure that we're checking out the install with Greg Cosell. I know Greg's going to be on 3HL later. You can hear that live. But if you want the best analysis on a week-in, week-out basis, in a long-form interview with Greg and myself, as Greg explains to me as he would a child, all of the things that make football go, I think you'll really enjoy that if you haven't checked it out already. So it's the install with Greg Cosell of NFL Films. A few things before we get to polls. One, we're going to Senior Bowl. It's going to be Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling, Kirby Allen Kirby, and yours truly. So that will be a lot of fun, a lot of great information and analysis that we will collectively be able to provide. It'll be fun to have actual friends in Mobile. I mean, I have friends who go to Mobile every year because of other people who cover the league, but hometown friends. It'll be nice to not have to eat oysters by myself in a sad restaurant in Mobile while I'm awaiting Senior Bowl practices and interviews and the like. So that'll be a great time. We'll have some good stuff to bring back for you that way. Also, College Game Day going to be in Knoxville not once, but twice, tonight and on Saturday. The Lady Vols have UConn and the hated Gino Auriemma, who won't shut his mouth about just generally all things Lady Vols in ways that are frustrating to many of you. So you'll look forward to the Lady Vols trying to get a win over. What's UConn ranked right now? Are they? I haven't watched much women's basketball yet this year.
They're a top 5 team.
Okay.
Yeah. Lady Vols on a 9-game win streak.
Feeling pretty good. I saw a really nice article about Kelly Harper the other day and about kind of playing off the name of the court, trying to get back to the summit. I thought it was very well done by the Knoxville News Sentinel, so they're worth checking out on your time. And then, of course, Tennessee, a top 5 team, will host a top 10 team in Texas this Saturday, so College Game Day will be there as well. Quick coaching search update before we do polls. Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network was just on television talking about the Colts head coaching search, which I know all of us, for the purposes of comedy or otherwise, are very much invested in at this point.
Yeah, it seems not very close. My understanding is the Colts are having second interviews right now. Is Giro Evero, the Broncos defensive coordinator, in today. Jeff Saturday, the interim coach, who still has a legitimate chance at the job, despite his 1-7 record and not actually being a coach, despite the fact that he was the interim coach this year. He also is certainly receiving consideration. And they have Raheem Morris going to be in tomorrow, Dan Quinn Saturday. But it sounds like this team is going to take through the weekend and into early next week before making a decision on their permanent head coach. Chris Ballard, the general manager, wants to make sure that owner Jim Irsay has a look at a lot of candidates. Irsay not involved in the first round of interviews, is involved in the second round, so we will see where they land and if it is, in fact, Jeff Saturday, which I know would make the heads explode of many, many actual coaches across the league. Then there's the Minnesota Vikings. Okay. They are still in need of a defense.
Minnesota Vikings, not necessarily relevant to our discussion. That last part. Two things there. Jim Irsay not involved in the first round, but involved in the second round, which I don't know how the two of you feel about it back there, but to me that means it's basically a whole new coaching search, and Jim Irsay wants to meet with almost everybody that they did first round interviews with. Why even bother? If you're not going to have him in there on the front end, you know he's just going to come in there and make a mess of it on the back end. This is Jim Irsay's hire. He's going to do it as he pleases, and it almost seems like a waste of everybody's time to even do the first round without him.
It's going to be so frustrating if they do hire Jeff Saturday for all of those people on the Colts staff that have been vetting and talking to and interviewing actually legitimate candidates just for Irsay to swoop in the second round and say, nah, let's go with my guy.
I have nothing but gut instinct on this, but I'm almost certain that's how this is going to go down. And you heard Rap Sheet say, would make the heads of many, many coaches around the NFL explode, not the least of which are currently on the Colts staff awaiting who the hell is going to be their future employer. That's the thing that gets, I know it gets brought up enough to where it doesn't always get lost in the balance. It probably gets mentioned adequately, but how many other people's lives, careers, and family dynamics are caught up in these coaching searches where it's one big domino and many, many other smaller ones that fall as a result. So if Jim Irsay does the most Jim Irsay of things, which was already to hire Jeff Saturday as the interim, but to go to double down and say, you know what? One win and one of the some of the most epic collapses in NFL history, that's enough. I've seen enough. He's got promise. Jeff knows his stuff. Upper quartile of the upper quartile of the upper quartile. That's my guy. Like I said, for the sake of comedy, I'm actively rooting for it. For the sake of competitiveness, man, Titans fans have to be rooting for it too. Polls, please.
'Tis I, wrestling superstar and Hall of Famer, Macho Man Randy Savage. We're not here to talk about me. Oh yeah, we're talking about the mega powers uniting. We're talking about Buck Rising, yeah, and Lucas Panzica. When they shake hands, things happen. Like this poll update. Dig it! Tell us the results of the poll, Lucas. Oh, yeah.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, you can custom order any new Ford at tworivers.com. They sell below MSRP on all non-specialty new Fords. What is your reaction to Ran Carthon not wanting a rebuild? 88% say I love it, stay competitive. 12% say I hate it, tear it down.
Yeah. There's a small percentage of you that want it torn down, but you are loud, you are mighty, but fortunately we don't have to deal with that because Ran Carthon is not publicly going to acknowledge any kind of rebuild whatsoever.
Can Brock Purdy win a Super Bowl? 82% believe yes.
Oh my God. If Brock Purdy wins a Super Bowl, like what do they do? We'll talk about that tomorrow. What the hell do you do with Brock Purdy if the Niners win the Super Bowl? Given that Tom Brady is interested in San Francisco and Trey Lance, they gave up all kinds of picks to go get that dude.
I feel like he has to be your guy. I feel like he just has to be your guy.
It can't possibly be that. It can't possibly be that.
What? Why? Why?
Because he's not that good. He's not very good as a player.
But they are good. They are very good with him at quarterback. Much, 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 much better than they were with Trey Lance.
Can they be? Well, you don't know that because you've seen Trey Lance play one game, and it was in an utter monsoon in Chicago.
He played a couple games before he got hurt.
He played 2, and he broke his ankle in the second one.
Yeah, and more interceptions than touchdowns because he had 0 touchdowns.
Stop it.
Should LSU fans be allowed to bandwagon the Bengals? 61% say yes, 39% say no.
I think Alabama fans, Lucas made the case well. I think Alabama fans have a greater claim to bandwagon Jalen Hurts and the Eagles than do probably Saints, now turned Bengals LSU fans that are rooting for Chase and Burrow together.
I think it's lame to have Bengals are my second team. Like, I hate anybody that has
AFC team and an NFC team.
Oh, get out of here with that. I hate the AFC, NFC thing, but I think it's fine to be happy that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are lighting up the league. I mean, those guys gave you one of the best teams in college football history. You get to root for them wherever they go.
Imagine talking to somebody, one of your buddies, in the world of college football, and him saying, well, Tennessee is my SEC team, but Ohio State is my Big Ten team.
I think there are people like that in this world.
I'm certain. There's too many split jerseys with the same name on the back of them for that not to be the case. Imagine seeing an LSU Ohio State Joe Burrow jersey wandering around Death Valley somewhere.
I'm probably a hypocrite in all of this because when the World Cup comes around, I have allegiances based on my mother's background and my father's background. So I think there are some exceptions. My biased opinion is that there are some exceptions. But yeah, get out of here with AFC and NFC team. Who wins NFL Coach of the Year? 39%. Majority say Brian Daboll.
What the hell? No.
This is an impressive turnaround.
It is an impressive turnaround, but the Eagles were the best team in the sport this year, and they swept the Giants. No, get out of here, Brian Daboll.
25% say Doug Peterson with the Jags. 19% say Kyle Shanahan. The lowest percentage, 17%, give it to Sirianni. I'm assuming because of his awful pizza takes.
I don't think that's why. That's nonsensical to me. Like, it's a
an
regular
Italian man getting Little Caesars when he has the entirety of Philadelphia pizza joints at his disposal? Yes, that is nonsensical.
Okay, clearly you're unhinged and unreasonable. I can't negotiate with you on this.
Those are the polls.
Excellent. That's going to do it for us today. A great show, as I mentioned. Go check out the podcast if you so desire. We're going to talk a lot about the championship games tomorrow AFC, NFC. Coach Mack will be here. Greg Cosell, you'll hear some analysis from him as well, and we will enjoy that time together. One more A to Z Sports Primetime show tonight, so I'll look forward to seeing you guys then at about 8 p.m. Central Time. If not, radio show starts at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning on 104.5 The Zone. See you guys.